Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. This week we got our all-star team, Hall of Famers, reporters from Pittsburgh. We just bring old coaches, people that played football. We got everybody on. And what we want you to do is we get ready to talk some game. So go out there and get all your snacks and stuff. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. This week, we are going to kick it around about the playoff teams because there's a lot of teams out there that are dangerous right now. So we must begin with the Washington football team because they did not do as well as they should have this year. Donna, when you look at this team, what is the biggest need for this Washington team?
Well, Tony, when you look at the playoffs and the teams that's in the playoffs, they've got solid quarterback play. You got Tom Brady, you got Joe Burrow, you got Aaron Rodgers, you got Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the list goes on. And when you think about those calibers of quarterbacks that's in the playoffs right now, you think about this Washington football team need to upgrade that position. So for me, as I've been saying all season long, I would start there because it doesn't matter about how many other people that you have around. If you don't have a solid anchor leading the team, then nothing else really matters. And I know that Taylor Heineke, everybody talks about him being a 50-50 man this year and the things that he did, but he could not take this team further like the other quarterbacks that's in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, I think he's going as far as he's going. Speaking of that, y'all see Mean Joe Greene on here. Quarterbacks hate to even hear his name now. And he's been retired for a few years. Joe, you guys your quarterback retired the other day. He didn't get you where you wanted to get this year, but what's the plan up there in Pittsburgh?
Oh, I don't know about the quarterback position, but I'm in the camp that I'd like to see Ben keep playing. We just need to, when we talked about every team needs a quarterback, every quarterback needs an offensive line and a running back. And we have the running back. The offensive line is youthful. Now, that doesn't mean they can't play next year. And I think that them getting into the playoffs bode well for a team that was basically young at every position on offense, except for the quarterback position. Now, through my experience, getting into the playoffs when we had a bad team, when I mean bad team, a team that wasn't Super Bowl ready, and we were there a few times that we weren't Super Bowl ready. And as a player, you're hoping for the best, but you know if you got the goods, you got the goods. Like when John's team went to the Super Bowl, they knew when they had the goods and they knew when they didn't. So being into the playoffs, that gives you some desire to come back when you lose. I recall being in Oakland and losing a first-round playoff game in '73, and a bunch of us was on the back of that plane flying all the way across country back to Pittsburgh and talking about how we felt personally about losing that game. That gave us impetus to go to that next season, the off season, the preseason, and getting into the playoffs and having an opportunity to beat the Raiders and go to our first Super Bowl. So I think that was the impetus for us of being in the playoffs, even though we lost. And I think that this year, for this young Pittsburgh Steelers team, being in the playoffs probably was a plus for them. I would say it was a plus.
But you You know, and with that being said, John Hanna, one of the best offensive linemen ever to play the game. And, you know, I didn't have to line up on him. So, you know, I give him his creds, but, you know, I kind of wanted him to come out there on that left side so I could see what he had. But, no, I'm just
could have gone over to the right.
John, you remember when Joe started talking about that 73, we did the same thing against the Raiders in 76. We had one of our best teams we ever had. Yes, and a couple of bad calls kept us out of the Super Bowl, John. And I look at that, and do you still relive that like I do?
Oh, yeah. I think, to be honest with you, I think 76, between 76 and then 78 teams were our best teams.
Yeah.
And there's no question about that. And I think 76 really did motivate us to get ready and try to play hard and to get ready for it. And I think, you know, Joe, when you make it to the Super Bowl, for us, I think I see, you know, when we went there and we got embarrassed. Unfortunately, I couldn't try to go back again. I was too old at the time. But the whole tempo of that Super Bowl was so different.
Yes.
And you know, I'm the kind of guy that I had to get myself emotionally up. I had to, you know, get excited. And it's hard to do that for that game because it takes so long. And, you know, you go out there and you warm up, and by the time you get back out on the field, you got to warm up again.
Absolutely.
And it's awful. It's they've taken it and they've commercialized it so dead blame much that it's not a real football game.
I understand.
So in one way, I guess it's great that you can make money off of it and everything, and it really helps to show who's got the most talent. But another thing is you don't see the guys that are overachievers have the opportunity because they're playing with something besides athletic ability. Does that make sense to you?
Very much so. And, you know, I look at that now and, you know, then I look back at guys that played prior to us playing, and they probably felt a little bit the same way we did. But I still have to say that our guys back then, we were more in tune with the game. It wasn't just about the notoriety, the money and all that. Cause we, you know, a lot of guys didn't make a lot of money while I was there. It was getting to the Super Bowl. And Mike, you and I were great on teams together. I always remember here in Washington, we had gone to the Super Bowl one year. The coordinator came to me one day and he said, is anybody out there that's pretty good? I said, Mike Haynes is up in New England. That's when I was with Washington. I said, you need to go and get, Mike Haynes don't want to come here, don't want to go here. The next week they announced that Mike Haynes was in Oakland, and I said, that's who we'll play in the Super Bowl. That's who we played, and they told us a new one too, Mike. So, you know, you look at these teams now, and, you know, I'm still mad at you about that, but I think I'll get over it anyway. I'm mad as heck.
Well, Mike, I was really blessed. I was blessed to be able to go to the Raiders at that time because, you know, the Patriots, as much talent as they had, I didn't really feel like at the top they really wanted to go to the Super Bowl. You know, I really felt like they wanted to do as well as they could and fill up the stadium, but not make the playoffs. You know, that's why, you know, they made a lot of difference by trading away some of our good players and things like that. And I really think the way the league is structured now, that everybody in the league who wants to make money, they have to win. Back in those days, I'm not sure that was actually the case. Like the Giants, they could sell out every single game and never go anyplace. It was like the ideal thing. And I won't mention names, but an owner said to me, the Giants have it figured out right. And so for us, we're out there playing our hearts out to get to the Super Bowl, to get a little extra money and get some, you know, be able to take care of our families and things. But I don't think that the league was necessarily structured that way. The owner of that team would have to have an ego that was so big that he just wanted to have the best team and he wanted to be able to say that. And that would motivate the coaches and everybody to get the job done. Now, the way the league is structured, I believe it's structured that way. So if they want to make a lot of money, they got to win, and they got to bring in good players and good talent. And the fans that have supported that team, that's what they want. And so every owner wants to keep the fans and make them happy. And I'm glad the way the league has been structured. You could say like the last 20 years, really. It's been quite a while. But back in our day, I'm not so sure that it was structured that way.
Mike, now I know why John lost his running buddy back then. I'm talking about that left tackle that played
great.
with him.
Leon Gray.
Where he went to Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Leon
was the best. Leon was one of the best tackles I ever. He's the best tackle during that era.
Yeah.
When we were there, he was unbelievable. He could run block. He had great feet. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they split us up in '79 because Leon and I were coming up.
The best guard tackle combo in the league.
Exactly.
New England or the Oakland Raiders.
Right.
With Upshaw and Shale. Same kind of talent.
But isn't that kind of the way the league, and that's why what we're talking about today is that's when the league started changing it. It didn't come back to just winning and being a group and a family and all that. It came down to we want this player here and we don't want this player here for this reason, or we don't want this. And that's when they start singling out. That's why you look at these players today, and I'm going to go to wide receiver right away. G, I thought Tampa had a real good chance of repeating, but they need the young man that just went crazy on them. I think without him, I don't know if Tampa Bay can repeat.
No, I don't ever count leadership out. You got good leadership on the team. A lot of that comes into it. I mean, perfect example. The Raiders, Pittsburgh was so good. It's the leadership, the players' leadership. When you sit down, you look at that Iron Curtain. Come on now, that leadership they follow. So if somebody, I can imagine playing on that team or playing on the Raiders team, and somebody gets hurt, the person comes in, and if they didn't do a good job, I'd hate to see what would happen to them, because I already know the leadership on that team is going to ensure that they come in and do a good job. Because back then, you had to look over your shoulder for your job because somebody behind you was that good. It's not like now where somebody gets hurt, they make excuse up. That's why they lost, because a key player was out. Well, if somebody got hurt on our team when I was playing, you looked over your shoulder because you might not get your job back.
Got that right.
I mean, that's the important part of it. I mean, that's the most important part to me is that so when you got leadership like Brady and some of the other guys that they have on that team, don't get me wrong, they got a lot of JMU linemen on that team. So I'm a JMU boy, so I like the linemen that's on that team. I just never count them out. I mean, it'd be kind of like, counting Terry Bradshaw out when he played. You don't really count Terry out. But Terry is a gunslinger. You don't count a gunslinger out ever, because he's going to take that chance. But you don't think he's going to take that chance. He's going to throw that ball that nobody think anybody can catch. It has Stallworth and it has Swan. Come on now.
Darrell,
That's all they do.
I'm going to say this with what you're saying. I'm agreeing with you. It's amazing that the coaches don't think that the players know who can play.
Yeah.
Every one of us know who the best guys were at the positions that they played. Every one of us know that.
Yeah.
When they start trying to put somebody in there that can't carry the load, you don't want to be with those guys, especially when they're going to cost you money. You got to get out of here. Get out of here.
To that point,
the thing about these guys jumping offside, and I did a few times, making mistakes, we all know cost you football games. If it costs you football games, it's going to cost you money.
Hello.
Yes.
Hey, that's what we need more of now. We got to take a break now. I know I haven't gotten you, Ty, or you, big fella. I want to get to you guys and ask you about the teams in the playoffs. To me, it looks like what's going to rule the playoffs this year will be the offensive, defensive lines. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit about that. Welcome back. And we've been talking about the playoffs and everything. We will have another show when we're referring to the different things that's transpiring. But I got such excellent people on here, Hall of Famers, news reporters, coaches, and everything, that we're going to talk about a lot of things in the league. And Ty, I went to you and I had a question when we went out the last time. I was saying that it looked like this year in the playoffs, the best teams will be the teams with the best lines. And it really looked like whoever has that defense and offensive line, look like that's where it's going to make the difference this year.
Yeah,
Hey,
I think
Tony, but before Todd starts off, I want to just hit on his Cowboys, who ended up having 14 penalties, which was their Achilles heels. I know he's feeling the pain today. Go on, Ty. Go on, Ty.
Johnny, you done made him all sad, Don. Why you want to do that to him?
let me chime in about the Cowboys first of all. You guys been talking about the fact that Jerry Jones wants to win a Super Bowl so bad he can taste it. Right now, for Jerry Jones, the object is not money, obviously, and for America, watching these sports shows, if I'm all other teams, I'm kind of jealous because the only team they talk about day in and day out are the Dallas Cowboys. So for instance, if I'm the New Orleans Saints, if I'm Tampa Bay, if I'm Kansas City, why do I have to sit around my fans and listen to Cowboy talk all day? But that's only because the Cowboys move the needle, win or lose. So even with the divisional playoffs coming up this weekend, they will still be talking about the Cowboys and whether or not Mike McCarthy, should be the coach. I hate the fact that every time they talk about Dak Prescott, it comes down to what he's making. They don't talk about other quarterbacks in that respect. But I do think one of the things about the Cowboys, Jerry Jones, he does want to win bad. He keeps them in the conversation. He goes and gets what he needs to try to win. And I'm not one of those who subscribe to the fact that he needs to stay out of the way, because if you own it, you should be a part of it. And I just don't believe that he is the problem with the Cowboys, first of all. Now, second, I do want to, Joe Greene.
Whoa, wait, Ty. You just spent all that time defending them. They at home. That's all we want to know.
Well, yeah, and so is the rest. So is the rest of the.
Hey, why they at home? Because they weren't as good as the team they were playing.
They weren't. They weren't. You can't commit 14 penalties. You can't. But
he admitted that right off.
But Joe, I want to mention something real quick. You mentioned Ben Roethlisberger, and I know a guy. A lot of former players here, some do think that Ben should come back. But realistically, I think we've seen the best of Ben Roethlisberger. And since I've been here, I've seen the Steelers make a couple of moves that signal that they turned it around. I think this is one of those times because back in the early 90s or late 90s, they got Jerome Bettis from the Rams. And that kind of, gave them that kind of like offense, a different kind of persona. Then a couple of years later, they went and got Kevin Greene, and that kind of turned to Blitzburg. And I think they're at the pinnacle of another change right now where they have to bring somebody in. And it can't be Ben, because right now, line or no line, he's just not as accurate. He's just not as mobile as he used to be. So I would keep my eye out for a couple of guys who are free agents. Most notably, Russell Wilson's now saying he wants to explore his options. And to me, the Steelers have always gone and gotten someone that no one expected for them to get. And I think that I wouldn't want to see Kirk Cousins come here. I think he's more suited to go back to Washington. But I think it's one of those situations.
Not at all, Ty.
One of those situations where I do think they're at a crossroads where they know they gave Ben his going away party actually last Monday night. And they did everything but sing the Michael Jackson Ben song, The Two of Us Need Look No More. Everything happened that night, so I think it's time for Ben Roethlisberger to move on and for them to bring somebody here who can turn around it's just, they have the team, they have the defense, they have the makings of a good offense, and you just can't run Najee Harris into the ground without bringing him someone who could take the pressure off him.
Hey, Ty, you hear that noise outside? It's a mob in front of your door waiting for you to come out.
Yeah. We talking about.
You're not supposed to talk about big Ben like that, but I agree with you totally. I think to me,
there's no immobility in the pocket. Now we'll go back a few years. Johnny Unitas couldn't run, but he threw the ball. Joe Namath couldn't run, didn't run, but he threw the football. The guy that's 44 years old right now, leading Tampa, and he's the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl again. He doesn't run. He just moves around in the pocket enough. He has awareness to know that when somebody's getting ready to take his head off, he can move to the left or to the right or duck. That's all a quarterback needs to do, is be able to move around enough look downfield and know where he's got to throw the football. He doesn't have to run like Mahomes or Jackson. Just needs to be able to get rid of the football. Ben has been getting hit since day one. And he got hit more this year than he ever got hit. And he's still there. I think Ben still has something left. We just got to give the kid some help, young man some help. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe Joe, do you think Ben may come back?
I'm a Ben Roethlisberger fan.
With Washington
I
want
want
him?
him to throw some balls.
No.
Nobody can throw like some of the throws that he made. Who else is going to make them? He's missed a few. But gee, if you having to duck bullets all the time, everybody's going to miss some. Throwing in a hurry.
I want to add something too. When you talk about quarterbacks, you also got to scheme the quarterback. We played when I was early in my career. I played with Jim Plunkett. And we were running 4 and 5 man patterns. So what that meant was a quarterback had to get rid of the ball in 2.83 seconds because there's somebody coming. Well, you know, Jim was a great, accurate passer, no question about it. But when you timed him a 40-yard dash, you better bring a sandwich because it's going to take him a while. But you know, he goes out to the San Francisco, same thing happens there. But when he got to the Raiders, if you watch the Raiders, they run 3 and 4 man patterns. So that bought him an extra second. And that's all Jim needed. He needed that extra second to get back in the pocket and find his receiver and throw it. And I think that has a lot to do with things too, is the scheme.
And he found his way to the Super Bowl.
That's exactly right. And, you know,
Tony,
he finally found the scheme for him. But it's like, you know, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go on. But you were talking about speed. I'm thinking about Darrell Greene, who's the all-time great at running the 40. But Darrell, when you look at the teams that's in the playoffs right now, and Tony talks about defense, and a lot of you are defensive minded. When you talk about the Buffalo Bills, is this their year? When you talk about Cincinnati, who hadn't been in the playoffs for 31 years, who do you like defensively in there? Who is the strong teams right now in the Super Bowl that scares you right now?
The Super Bowl hunt is going to go through Green Bay. If anybody have any sense, they know it's going to go through Green Bay. Everybody else is they either new to the dance and they're going to have to prove it. Buffalo is new to the dance. The Rams are, you know, they wasn't sure about what they were going to do. So the real veteran team is Green Bay. Dallas, I don't know where y'all got this guy Todd from. He talking about he right for Pittsburgh, but he want to take half the show and talk about the Cowboys. I don't know what this but the reality is, you know, the Cowboys were fortunate. Whoever win the NFC East, they're gonna get one game and go home. That's what they're
right, exactly.
So I mean, he said he talking about the Cowboys, Redskins, Eagles, Giants. I mean, throw them in a bucket and shake them up, throw one out. But so, you know, I don't know. No, I think Green Bay is, you know, unless something goes wrong, they get hurt, they run the ball, they stop, the defense play really well. So, and it's going to be cold out there.
There you go. You just hit the big one. That weather is going to be something that creates. That's why you're looking at Buffalo and Green Bay both got examples that they gonna have a good weather for them to play in.
Matter of fact,
other teams will have to get used to that.
And let me hit something on that too, to go back a little bit on that, because I grew up in Houston, and Joe Greene with the E on the name, his last name with the E. I don't know. We talk about that later, but that's the only reason why Earl Campbell played in that dome and could not get home field advantage. I'm scarred. I'm a kid. I'm still scarred because we couldn't get home field advantage. We had to go to Pittsburgh on that doggone cold ice. If Earl would have got him in that dome, boy, history would have been. Maybe talking about Joe Greene. Who's Joe Greene?
But they had us in Houston. Every year they had us in Houston.
You always had home
They
field
had us in
advantage, Joe.
Houston. We had them in Pittsburgh. We were
Joe,
in the
you had
same
home field
division.
advantage. You had home field every year, Joe. Home field.
They sure did. Look like every year, and they had everybody on the Pro Bowl. They did all of it, but then 6 Super Bowls. I guess they did deserve it
because we had the goods.
I just say that to say that cold weather plays a factor for some of these warm cities, some warm teams.
Hey,
Go ahead,
so let me ask Mike.
It's going to do Green Bay in.
Let me ask Mike Haynes this.
Mike,
hold on.
Get rushed. They
Say
all
that
go
again,
down.
Joe. Say it again, Joe.
Pass rush.
Oh, okay.
Pass rush. Whoever got the pass rush.
There you go.
In the NFC is going to do Green Bay in.
Well, you know what? I can say one thing, and it has to be coordinated, but at the same time, Mike, you looking at the way they play in defensive backs now. They even did this with Collins in Washington, and they did the number 11 down there in Dallas. And defensive backs are turning more into back what we call rovers, where they coming up on the line, they stuffing, they being able to cover stuff. Is that the new defensive backs we're going to see?
It looks like it, and the thing that I like is all of them seem really, really talented. They're fast, they're long, they're smart, and they make plays. And it's a lot of fun. But as every defensive back would tell you, you got to have a pass rush. You know, if you don't have a pass rush, it's going to be a tough job because all those guys, especially these young quarterbacks coming in now, they look like they have all studied the best quarterbacks, and they're coming in, I think, in their second year, or first and second year, they're making a name for themselves. They're accurate, they're well coached, they don't seem like the game is too big for them. We know because we played a long time that you really have to have a lot of experience. Like getting to the Super Bowl as a Steeler or any team, the Raiders, you almost have an advantage because you know exactly what you have to do to get there and what you have to overcome to get there and how you have to play once you are there. And a lot of these young guys will be figuring this out. So I think we're going to have, and from the quarterback position, I think we're going to have a lot of good quarterbacks in the future. The next 5 years, probably going to have like 15 quarterbacks that are all superstars and all know what they're doing and all, all the receivers are not going to care where they go. All these guys are going to be spreading the ball and everything, and everybody knows exactly how to run that RPO offense. You know, if you have to do it, you can run, and move the ball as long as you got a quarterback that can also run. So anyway, the way the defense is great. And I don't know exactly what's motivating them. Maybe it's just the guys on their own team who are really super gifted are helping them because they're getting tested every day in practice.
Oh, yeah, you do get a chance. And when we come back from this break, big fella, you haven't got you in, but you've been watching these games there since you was a kid watching me. And I'd like to take these playoff teams and tell me, what do you see different? What do you think is the main thing that a winning team in this playoff need to have? And when we come back, I'll talk to the big fella about that in a minute.
You know what? I feel honored to be out here. I pull out my camera because I'm with all these Hall of Fames, but I want to talk to Ray Hamilton because you played and you also coached. When you look at the league right now and everybody talk about the parity across the board, and they finally got it this year, you can't pick one team, maybe a couple of teams you could say they're going to win, but pretty much they haven't. What has changed so much about this game with the teams in the playoffs right now?
Well, just like Joe was saying earlier, a lot of times most of the time, 90% of the time, Mike was right about the quarterback, and you guys are right about that. But at the end of the game, the winning coach or the losing coach is going to say one or two things. Our offensive line dominated up front. Or the other guy's going to say our defensive line dominated up front.
Yeah.
If you can't block them, or you can rush the passer, or you can control the line of scrimmage. It's like the Patriots beat Buffalo early in the year throwing 3 passes. Their offensive line just killed them up front. But Buffalo made some changes, moved some people around, did some stuff like that. It's all about the guys up front. If the guys up front can dominate on one side or the other, they're going to win the game. Simple as that. And you can stay fairly penalty free, like the Cowboys couldn't yesterday, Ty. But but that's the whole deal is the guys up front. I think Joe will tell you that. Hogg will tell you that. Mike was saying that he's a better defensive back with Tony and myself, Joe rushing the passer, and he is when the quarterback is. I see a lot of coordinators now going to 3-man rushes, stuff like that. You know, John Hannon just lick his chops if only 3 guys are going to rush. The quarterback's going to have another extra 2 or 3 or 4 seconds to throw the ball, and no defensive back can cover for that long. So,
well, you know what, Ray?
Different stuff like that. I see so much unsound stuff up front. Joe and I have talked before, but it's so much unsound stuff for defensive linemen with contain and lanes and stuff like that. It's just sickening. And anyway, it's all about the guys up front.
We couldn't get away with playing that way during our time. No. And Tony, you know that. These guys are not rush lanes. They out of them. They turn parallel to the line of scrimmage.
Exactly.
Guys rushing the quarterback. They're going to go 5 yards upfield. They're going to leave a big gap between them and the defensive tackle. And it's like what we used to call it when that happens, 7-on-7. I mean, the quarterback is throwing the ball against linebackers and DBs, and the defensive line is not there because they run themselves right out of.
They run themselves out of play.
Yeah. The one thing that there's so many young coaches that are in the league now that don't know what the hell they're doing.
You're right. You're 100% right.
Oh my goodness.
Field. You can see it on the field. It's crazy.
And you know what? That's the difference in the team. And I'm gonna ask you, big fella, because you're a young fella that you still watching it and you watching it now. And as you see these teams, and you saw us go to a couple of Super Bowls and stuff, what is the difference, Big Sal, you see in these teams now as opposed to our team?
First of all, I got to give a shout out to the normal 202, 301, 703. I've been quiet and speechless this whole time just because I have actually grown up with some part of all these young men on this view, Ty and Donna, in some kind of aspect. I could start with that young man with the E on the end of his name, that Greene. I used to watch my father want to be a better pass rusher. So unlike some of these guys, he would actually go home and study film. He would actually put Mr. Greene's film in and a couple other people and study technique. Oh my goodness, Mr. Hamilton, don't even want to talk about that. I grew up with his boys. Me and his boys grew up together, and I really would watch Sugar Bear and Mac the Sack see who was going to meet at the quarterback. Mr. Haynes, that's a whole nother level of, that was the first tall safety I saw. You know, me being a guy that was going to eventually be tall myself, I got to see a guy that could actually cover, but then you would put him back there and he was a threat. And then I can't even talk about number 73 because Dad actually let me get close to his locker at times in training camps. And I was like, this is one of the biggest guys I've ever seen in my life. So my thing, and the great 84, what can I say? I mean, he helped me with the duration of what was going on here in the DMV area. And number 28 that stepped away for a second, that was like a neighbor, and I just watched him do certain things. And he actually introduced us to Miss Hopkins. So
sure did.
Is this, if them guys had any of what you guys represented or any of your knowledge, they would be different situations for a lot of these players. And that's the thing that we're missing. Nobody wants to ask for help. Nobody wants to get schemes. Like I said, I would be knocking down Mr. Hamilton's door every day and Mr. McGee's door, because you have proven people that have had over 100 sacks during an era when that was incredible. All the corners should be trying to find Mr. Darrell Greene's car and maybe wash it a couple of times just to find out his jam techniques. The linemen, maybe if Mr. Hanna would just give them the presence, maybe just every once in a while, just write them a note every once in a while on how to pass block. Can't even talk about what Mr. Haynes could present to the backfield of these young men, but it's called reaching out. And Mr. Greene, they reach out to Mr. Greene, but do they really reach out and get his knowledge on handwork? I like Watts, but has Watts really talked to Mr. Greene yet and really learn how to go to that next level and be not only, yeah, you be straight hand, but you working off of hard work. You working off of schemes in mind. I'm not saying you do no handwork like Mr. Greene with the E did. So that's where I'm at as a fan of all these young men on the spectrum right now. If they would just reach out to some of these people, I think a lot of these players, including the burgundy and gold, will be further off. But like Mr. Hamilton said, they're getting paid so much money, they feel like they don't have the proper, you know, why would I talk to Mr. Greene? Even though I saw him run a 4.2 just to go to his mailbox. Why would I talk to Mr. Clark?
Scared of me though, why?
Well, Dad, that was the day that you ran a 4.5. You know?
Don't be jealous, Tony.
You didn't have to tell him that.
I ran
I've been telling this for years that Darrell was scared of me. Now you done told him I only ran a 4.5. No, he wasn't scared of me. He just felt sorry for me.
But just so you can know that
4.5 in the 5th grade too. I ran 4.5 in the 5th grade.
You got greats like, and I mean, I'm a kid, you know, as growing up as fans of all these guys on this platform, I actually watched greats get great. I'm gonna be honest, when I met Mr. Darrell Greene here, he was a young buck. And I watched him actually come down there and work out, him and this guy named Reggie Big Arm Branch. And then I watched him work out with the defensive lineman to get bigger. And I watched Darrell for the first time bench over 300. He was already flying, but I watched him do things to get better. I don't see that anymore. I really don't see like players doing what he did and what people did just to get better, you know, and make that effort.
I want to get
you
back
benched more than 300?
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. Let me tell you guys a story. I want the fans to know this too. Darrell Greene he was getting ready to be the fastest man in the NFL. And I had a little workout routine. I said, come on down, Darrell, and I can tell you, I can improve a lot of your strength. He would never do nothing with his legs. He said, I ain't gonna mess with my leg. Darrell came down there bench pressing 165. By March or April, he was benching 300. I didn't see him no more. I saw him walking around with his shirt off. He didn't even come back over there. He know telling the truth too.
Hold on, Tony. Let me speak for myself, John. Let me say one thing. Tony had me lifting this 300 pounds. That's a true story. But we had my teammate Vernon Dean, he would play corner too, Mike, and he had big arms, and he couldn't run. And Tony said, we gonna max out today. When I hit that 300, I said, I ain't never coming back over here again. Because I was thinking I was gonna be like this here running. And he's like, man, why you ain't come back? Like, man, you get out of I ain't no way I'm gonna lift no 300 pounds again. I don't need to throw Gary Clark around like that. He's a little old bitty guy, man. So no, man, I did not want to lift no 300 pounds, Mike. I did not want to lift no 300 pounds. I was not happy with that. No,
but you know, you listen to these stories and you fans, you listen to it and you see, that's why all these guys are in the Hall of Fame are there, either outstanding on their team. And these are the things that we do not see from these guys now. They're getting paid. And once they get paid so much, they don't feel like they have to listen. I mean, everyone was talking about when Chase went out with the Washington team. The young boy that came in and took his place, I think his name is William Smith. He had more technique than Chase did. Chase had the talent, but this guy played it the way it should be played. That's what I see around the league. That's why I'm looking at these teams now. I don't think that Buffalo and Green Bay is much better than any of the other teams, but I think they got more discipline. They'll be playing in bad weather, and then they have more players that's doing their job and not talking about it. And
well,
that's why
let me hit what
let me ask you a question.
Go ahead, Joe.
Back to the technique and the fundamentals and all. I know that when you watch the game, you can't help but watch the guards play. Yeah. Tell me why some of these guys
get
run over. Tell me why they can't make a simple cutoff. What's wrong with it?
They can't move their feet.
Can't move. I want to talk to like Sugar Ray, Sugar Bear. I want to talk to you. When I was, I had the honor of playing under Jim Ringo, who was probably one of an undersized guard center,
Yeah,
but was a
Green
great
Bay.
player.
Yeah,
And
JR.
I remember in a offensive line meeting, he said, boys, I feel sorry for you. And we all kind of looked at him. He says, you'll never have the opportunity I have because they don't want ex-players to be coaches anymore. He said they intimidate the head coaches. And he was right. What happened is you've got a bunch of guys now, professional football in general is the only sport where the guy that's teaching you how to play never got to the level that you had.
That's true.
And you wonder what the hell's going on. How can he teach me where he's not been? Because football is about feel. I don't care what you say. Yeah, you can look at people and you got to do it. I remember I was looking at Dwight Stevenson handle the fridge before that game, before he played him and stuff. And he was hauling and tossing around and all this stuff. Well, I said, well, I'll try that. Well, I tried it and got my butt kicked because I don't have the same capability that Dwight had. Dwight had these quick feet and good hands, and I didn't have that. So I did go back and say, I got to go back to do what I do. But, I didn't have it. You just got to have somebody that's been there to teach it. And then once you understand the basics of what you got to do, it's an art form. Then you make it your own. It has to come what you can do, doing with your strengths and your weaknesses, and you got to play with that. But there's nobody there to even give them the basics of how to do it. And it's just, and getting back to those gaps and stuff too. I mean, I go out there, I look at a pro game, and I'm like Joe Greene. You see a guy in the A gap on the right side, the next guy is over on the outside the tackle, and you see that big gap, and you're saying, why don't you run a dive play? Hell, you got 4 yards guaranteed. And it's just crazy stuff. I never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Tony, let me hit that too. Because I want to support what Solomon was saying as relate to what John is saying. John is talking about the X's and O's, but Solomon is talking about the relationships too, in the basement, riding together, talking together, interacting as men, helping you understand the environment. You're just coming out of college. You're getting ready to be a man now, and you living 1,500 miles away from mom and them. And so, I really appreciate that part of it too. That is a lost part, is a lost art, where it's kind of right now, it's really every man for himself. These guys don't have that camaraderie. We had a good friend of ours passed away, Tony Perry Brooks, and him and Tony were best buddies. And I mean, literally, they just took me in like I was a kid. I felt like I was a kid. They just took me in. I mean, that was valuable to me. I needed that. I was homesick, scared. I mean, everything they was giving me beyond the X's and O's of football, I needed that. These grown men deciding to just take me in and say, "Come on, son, and we're gonna look out for you." And so, no, that's what you're saying too, Solomon. I appreciate that, and that's what, unfortunately, these kids think they don't need or they don't have. And then just to hit again, John, Hannah, what you're saying is that's a bad deal where all these coaches got their boys and they coaching them and it's just not even fair. A lot of guys want to be coaches. They work hard. They want to get a shot and they don't get a shot. And then this guy comes up and he's going to be a boy genius. They make him, he helps the coach 1 year, and then the next year he's a assistant coach. Next year he's a coordinator, and 4 years later he's a head coach, and he's a genius. I hate that stuff, man. And I've never wanted to be a coach, so I'm not even talking about anything for myself. But I know a lot of guys want to be coaches, and they should be coaches, and they just don't get the opportunity. That's a shame.
Tony, could you talk a little bit about that? Because Darrell kind of like talked about the coaches.
Yeah, and what we'll do, we'll talk about it when we get back, but you guys hit a lot of great points there. We want to talk about that, but each one of you guys have been to a Super Bowl. I just want each of you tell me one moment that you remember about going to that Super Bowl, or one thing that really made it happen. I want the fans to hear this so they can get a feel from guys that's really actually been there. And I look at all of you, and I didn't even think about that before this show, but all of you guys are my teammates, and all of you went through to Super Bowl. It must have been because of me. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. And you know, this has been a good show. We didn't go with a format that we had to go with. We wanted to see how these players are feeling about the new players, the old players, and themselves. And what we're going to do right now is go around. All these players been to the Super Bowl. They have some memories from it. I just remember the day that we clinched, that we finally knew we were going to the Super Bowl. It was so surreal. It was just something you always look for, and it never happened, and then it finally happened. But Donna, you were there then too. So tell me a little bit about yours quickly.
Yeah, Tony, it was the San Diego Super Bowl, which the Washington football team won, and also in Denver, where Gary and Darrell and even you were there. So it was my first time as far as just reporting, and got to be able to see 2 Super Bowls with the Washington football team. Ty?
John Hannah talked about all the pomp and circumstance of Super Bowls that happened before the game. Super Bowl 50, the Panthers taking on the Broncos. Before the game, I didn't see Peyton Manning, but Cam Newton came out. He circled the field twice in some new shoes, gold shoes, with his arms out like he was Superman. By the time the game started, he was spent, and the Broncos went on to win the game easily.
Ray Ham.
Who?
Sugar Bear.
Oh, my first year coaching in '85 with John Hannah on the team, we hadn't beaten Miami forever and ever and ever, and we were the first team to win 3. We were the first wild card team to win 3 road games and go to, and our third one was the AFC Championship game in Miami. We hadn't beaten 17 years in a row down there, and we went down there. We beat them. Knew we were going.
Yeah, I remember that well. I went to that game myself.
And
Big Joe.
My first coaching. Yep.
Me?
On Raymond Bear.
You didn't say anything about Doug Williams in that game.
What game? We
Some of
played
the
the
Redskins.
The one that Donna was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and Doug Williams.
Doug
First
Williams.
African American quarterback to win a Super Bowl.
That's
Yes.
right. He killed him. They were gonna throw me out of the stadium. I was cheering so hard. But anyway, the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Oakland Raiders out in Alameda County Coliseum. We're under 2 minutes, and I think we had more than a 7-point lead. And I'm looking at my guys, and they're looking at me, and I'm thinking, we're going to the Super Bowl. And this was for a team that 5 years earlier had gone 1-13. When I started playing with Pittsburgh, we were the armpit of the NFL. We were bad for 3 years. And then to envision going to the Super Bowl, golly, nothing could ever surpass that.
There you go. There you go. D. Greene.
So real quick, my Super Bowl experience, my rookie year, you guys had won the Super Bowl the previous year. I come in as a rookie. I'm the only difference on the team. We get to the Super Bowl, Mike Haynes and the Raiders. And so they kicked out behind. I'm from Division II. I'm small. I didn't expect to be in the NFL. I was the happiest losing team person that nobody ever knew. I was so happy to be in the Super Bowl. Even though we lost and they had won before, they were just so mad. And I have to tell the honest truth, I was so happy. I was just glad to be there, Gary. So, hey, that's my real story. Go ahead, G.
All right, Mike Haynes.
Mike Haynes.
All right. Well, I was super happy to be able to play on the Raiders, leaving the Patriots and going to the Raiders and really understanding what the difference was. Like, I felt like my Patriot team was really talented and really good enough to get to the Super Bowl. And for some reason, we struggled all the time. And I figured out later what it was. But with the Raiders, they expected to go to the Super Bowl.
Yes,
They
they did.
expected to go. You know,
Yes,
there's like, Mike, you just helped us. We're going. It was like, I'm going, wow, it's that easy. They just changed their mindset. They wanted to go, they're going. And I remember when we played Miami in Miami, you know, I could not believe we were playing Miami in Miami, and they were like, we love playing Miami in Miami. Well, when we were on the Patriots, we never beat Miami in Miami.
That's right.
You know, because it was kind of crazy. And so like, wow. And then I ball out that game. So anyway, my Super Bowl experience, when we went out for the pregame warm up and we were out there, I was like, wow, I'm playing in the Super Bowl. And then the Redskin players came out. And then all of a sudden the crowd changed, seemed like the air in the stadium changed. Everybody seemed to be in favor of those Redskin players. And the Redskins were like, oh, we're going to kick their butts because we already kicked their butts during the regular season on Monday night. And so I was like, wow. So when we went back in, I said, you know what? I got to change my mindset. I got to put on my game face. And so everybody in that defense put on their game face. And when we went out, even though we started well, we started out hot, we were not about to take off the pressure because we knew how good that Redskin team was. And so we knew it was going to take 4 quarters. Even though we had all these breakout plays and big plays and everything, we never let up. We were going to make them work, and we knew what kind of game it was going to be. And I'll never forget the energy that that I had and my teammates had for that game. And it was the most fun game I ever played in my whole life.
Wow. Offhand or quickly?
Well, I'm going to be repeating what Ray had to say, basically. That was 85 getting to the Super Bowl was a lot of fun. We settled a lot of scores. We beat the Raiders, on the road. And when we went out there and we beat Miami, and I think we're talking about a warm climate team going to a cold weather area. Let me tell you, when you've been practicing in 20-degree weather and then go down to Miami, that's pretty tough too, because you got to be, cramping all the way home on the back of the plane because you lost so much darn water weight. But that was a great season. It was just exciting, and to be a part of that was really good. But the big point, I hate to bring up bad things, but I am. We're sitting there, we're second half and everything. I had enough of the quarterback that had started the game, and I went to Raymond Berry and I said, you got to get that guy out of there. You got to get Steve Grogan in. I said, that quarterback we got in there is looking for the dirt. I mean, all he's doing is he's waiting to fall to the ground. And fortunately for, it was too late, dollar late and a nickel short and everything else. But the coach finally put Grogsby in. But I think if we'd have stuck with what we did right, running the ball, and I don't know if we could have beat them, but we sure would have been a lot closer than what we were.
And that's a Ghana story. And I remember that story. I was at that game. And you fans, I don't know if you realize, but you had the opportunity today to see some of the greatest football players ever to play in this league. And I got a chance to play against them, with them, and watch them. And I tell you what, I thank all of you guys. And then my reporters and different people that came on, and not all just the Hall of Famers. Everybody you've seen on this screen has been instrumental in us being able to have this show as long as we've had it. And I thank you guys. And when we look to the Super Bowl, maybe I can get you guys on again before the end of the Super Bowl, because we're going all the way through it and we'll talk again. But hey, thank you guys. And fans, thank you for watching us. And as we always say, we don't say goodbye. We say in the minute.